Hi everyone. Well, here I am in front of a place that I thought wouldn't be here 72 hours ago. Hurricane Milton has blown through here with wind speeds of 100 to 120 miles per hour. And I hope you can hear me through the chaos of the dog and the cat fighting as they do when they start to hear me speak. And there may be buzzsaws in the background, but this is the best I can do. We have trees down all around us. And the good news is I'm alive. So I want to talk about resilience in adversity, because that's one of the key things to surviving, not only surviving, but thriving in old age, in our mature years. The topics that I have focused on this channel are about thriving through fitness and health and longevity and how you do that. And one thing we really haven't talked about is when bad stuff happens, as it always does, whether you're a good person or not, how you deal with it. And certainly having 3 hurricanes in 2 months and 2 hurricanes in 2 weeks is about as stressful and crazy as life gets. I've had over the years all kinds of refrigerator magnets about staying tough and all that. As a television investigative reporter, I had to be calm all the time when chaos, literally riots, were going on behind me. And that's one of the things that has helped me to cope with some of the worst stressors that life has doled out. And I haven't shared them all on this channel, not even because I don't want this to be about me. I want it to be about helping you get through the challenges and deal with all kinds of things that life will throw our way. But part of our decision to stay, part of my decision to stay, was based on several things. Where are you going to go? The last thing I wanted to happen was to get stuck in a car with a hurricane going by. I actually drove through a tornado once, and that was bad enough, and I just wanted to stay put. The idea of evacuating, that was the other choice I could have made. My pets, my friends, and more importantly, my boyfriend was here. And some of us, when we reach this age, we don't have a lot of support with our families or our friends, and you just have to make the best decision with the information you had at the time. The one thing that was not helpful, and this happened with several emails or direct messages, comments on my different socials about evacuate now, you're gonna die. And in fact, we even had, who was it, the mayor of Tampa, saying, if you don't evacuate the flood zones or the evacuation zones, you're gonna die. And so people heard these messages not realizing that some of us are neither in a flood zone or an evacuation zone. And being in a blockhouse, which as you can see, even though it took 100 to 120 mile an hour sustained winds, is still standing, and no damage as far as we could tell to the house. Most of our neighbors who had damages to their house was the result of a tree falling on their house. And I am very fortunate to live in an area that's designated as a bird sanctuary, and the reason for that is the builders had the good fortitude to preserve as much as they could of the natural surroundings, which includes 200-year-old oak trees, as one arborist said of our 2 trees in our front yard, which I was terrified were going to fall down. So, but knowing that I wanted to stay here and focus on living in the present, that's one of the keys to dealing with a hurricane, is remaining clear. And in my mind, even though you hear a lot about hurricane parties and getting drunk, and I understand that, but you want to be focused enough and clear enough to make intelligent decisions. Like, we stayed most of the time in a safe room that I had developed in a walk-in closet with a mattress and blankets and pillows to throw over us because our house didn't have a bathtub. That would have been my first choice. But you have to adapt. You have to be thinking. You have to be sharp and clear in trying to deal with these kinds of decisions as they come up at the time. Living in the present is also about, as the storm hits, listening to what's going on. I did have some headphones that I was prepared to use because people said it was going to be an hour or hours of things, debris, trees hitting the house, and you want to tune that out. And if it had gotten that bad, I suppose I would have. And the interesting thing is that I was watching the radar until we lost Wi-Fi and connection to the internet. And it seemed to me the eye, as it was getting closer to shore, was breaking up. So I thought the storm was kind of weakening in a big way. And so when it got calm, we went outside, a bunch of us neighbors did, and then it didn't take long before one Sharpie, not me, realized, okay guys, this is the eye, and that lightning that you see on the perimeter that's approaching us, it's not just another common thunderstorm, it's the eye, the backside of the eye that's coming for us. So we had about 30 minutes to kind of play in the calm, and I actually did a video while I was in the eye, which you can see on my channel as well. But this idea that you gotta be able to think these things through. And I knew as a reporter, the last thing you're supposed to do is go outside in the eye. But if you have the opportunity, who doesn't? And it was a calculated risk, and fortunately, it worked out for the best. I've touched on another thing that's really important in reflecting, having gone through these intense storms, is the coming together of our communities. And certainly these storms bring out the best in people in terms of trying to help each other. Our neighborhood has a somewhat divisive homeowners association, even though we don't pay a lot of money to them. It's actually quite low, but they are very dug in about different issues that are important. And as like anything these days, there's a lot of polarization. So one neighbor yesterday had a hot dog truck come up. A friend of his brought it. They even had vegan dogs, and it was really nice just to get the neighborhood together. And that was his sole intent, was to bring people together in these times of stress. And the food truck ended up feeding many of the workers who were helping us with the different issues of our homes, especially the trees, because it's just a huge, huge problem here. And another point I want to talk about is acceptance and patience. I have the Serenity Prayer plastered on my fridge. As I've mentioned, I've had some very tough bumps in my life, and being able to recognize the things that you can't change and the things that you can change, and the wisdom to know the difference, is just so important. And it's also important in not stressing out. One of the most amazing things I heard about as I was trying to stay on top of things, but going into Milton, was that people, especially elderly people, die of heart attacks and strokes going into a storm or during a storm because of the stress, not because something hit them in the head. It's just about trying to stay calm as these things are literally swirling around us. That old saying of, you can't control the weather, and despite some of the conspiracy theorists out there who say, yes, we are, I just feel it's so important to recognize that it is what it is. I had a friend once who had that little saying above his kitchen door, and sometimes we just have to recognize there's only so much we can do to control what is happening to us. And what we can control is how we react to all of these situations and trying to stay calm. It's interesting, before the storm, my boyfriend and I met with a contractor who is a friend, and he was just talking about how these things don't stress him out at all. And I go, how do you do that? And he said, I took a meditation class for about 40 minutes every day a number of years ago for a period of months. And he said, my brain just changed, and I just don't react to that stuff anymore. And I think that's really interesting. I've heard so many wonderful things about meditation. I've tried it at different times in my life. I'm actually doing it now, and again, and trying to stick with the mantra that I've chosen, or that was chosen for me as a friend taught me, transcendental meditation. Sometimes it works, sometimes my brain wanders, and they always say, well, that's part of the process. Has it helped me to stay calm? Has my brain changed? I don't know. I know that not only was I very scared that my life was going to end the night of Milton, but I know that a lot of women that I talked to in our neighborhood feared the same thing, that if it came in as a Cat 4 or 5 instead of a Cat 3, which was bad enough, but a higher intensity storm would have acted like a tornado, or produced tornadoes locally, though they seem to stay more to our east. But the change in air pressure could have made the house explode. And I've seen from other hurricanes that I covered as a reporter, tornadoes, that's what happens. It's the change in air pressure that causes the most destruction, not necessarily the winds, although they can be horrible as well. So trying to be as knowledgeable of things before going in, and staying on my phone as much as I could, watching the changes in the radar, especially because I could see that the satellite was of no help because it was just this massive cloud. But being able to have some connection was so important. And in past storms, I've not had that. I had a crank up radio that I was prepared to use that would broadcast the National Weather Service announcements. But having the radar was just so important in trying to stay calm and informed about what I could and could not do. My boyfriend said he thought I may be over-prepared. I used big tubs of plastic containers to fill, because we don't have a bathtub. I filled those up with water, put them in the shower. I had so much water that I had put in the refrigerator just in case we ran out of water. But you never know. It helped me to stay calm, and sometimes in chaos, whether as a reporter or just living life as we do, you have to find things that keep you calm. And it could be, certainly we were connected with Princess and Pumpkin, our lab, and our cat, and they needed to be calm too, and they survived fine. I expected they were both going to bark. There was a period of time for about an hour before the eye and a couple hours after the eye, which was actually much worse than before, where the house was sounding like a freight train, as everybody always likes to say. But I wanted to listen to it. I didn't want to tune it out. And being present and finding that way to stay focused, all of those things helped me to stay present and not freak out, because it could have been easy to freak out. All of this is just a reminder to seek peace and calmness in life's most turbulent times. After every storm, and this is my final point, there is a chance to rebuild. How much to rebuild? Does it make sense? And I've talked about this as the effects of global warming become very close and personal, and in our literal backyards. How much to rebuild? Everybody has to answer that question. We are all climate change refugees, as I have mentioned in my past videos, and how we deal with that is up to our own recognition and education. I know that many people are just kind of accepting this is the way it's going to be, and maybe there is a better place to live. I don't know. I think it doesn't make sense for the entire state of Florida to evacuate, which it seemed like it was doing, and some of us had to stay and be strong. And for those people who admonished me and said, oh, you should leave, these are end days and the place is going to be leveled. Yeah, it may have been leveled if a Cat 4 or 5 had hit, but it didn't. And that's part of my trust in nature, is that sometimes that little wobble at the end, I've seen it happen time and time again with these storms, they will come in at the last minute making a sudden turn, and it doesn't come up your driveway, as the forecasters would have you believe. I will say, and I've said this in my last couple of videos how accurate the National Weather Service, the National Hurricane Center has been. They actually this time said that storm was going to come up a certain street, University Drive, and that is right up there, and it pretty much did, because we know that the eye came in at Siesta Key, just 6 miles to our southwest, and just totally tracked right over our house. It was a very large eye, and so calm and so surreal to see that. And it's just, having had the spiritual experience, there is a lot to be said for hope and renewal, and trying to figure out, continuing to promote the message that the United Nations has said the one thing that can help reduce our carbon footprint the most is giving up animal agriculture. And to the extent we take care of our environment, to try and reduce our carbon footprint so that these storms are not quite so violent and frequent as the different forecasters have said they're going to be. There is a chart that I hope I'll be able to share with you that shows the water temperatures, especially of the Gulf of Mexico, and on the way out of Africa, where a lot of the storms generate in that part of the Atlantic. The water temperatures are just way overheated for what they are normally supposed to be or have been. And that is one of the reasons that these storms are so frequent and massive and intense. So to the extent there is something we can do, I hope you'll look into what the United Nations has said about this and consider that we do have some ability to change the weather in what we eat 3 times a day. I actually had a friend who said instead of putting a name on her arm in case she was discovered dead, that she was going to put fight climate change, change your diet. So these kinds of challenges present times to rebuild, and after every storm there is a chance to do something that is new and creative and trying to stay positive, even if we do believe, as some of the pessimists would say, we are in the middle of the 6th mass extinction. There's a book by that title, you can check it out. But we just have to live our lives with cause and purpose, and there will always be challenges, and trying not to stay in a panic mode, be stressed by it, because it can cut our longevity and our lifespan. And we want to be able to, in the days when it is as gorgeous as it is now, to be able to enjoy what's around us. We actually did get out to the beach, and it was pretty mind-blowing. There wasn't a single person out, and the water was calm and the most intense blue, along with the sky, that I have ever seen. So remember the good times. They are ahead, even when we are in the eye of a hurricane. All right, everyone, thanks for watching, and let me know your thoughts. If you rode out the storm, how you did it. Did you have supportive people around you, and how that went for you? Because one thing I will share with you, whatever your decision is, somebody asked me, should I stay, should I go? Whatever your decision is, it's the right one for you. All right, everyone, gotta run.